Here's a new FE series smartphone from Samsung. It's the Galaxy S25 FE. What's new here? Does this phone pack more value than the S-series flagships? And we'll go for GSM Arena and let's find out in our Galaxy S25 FE review. Samsung's Fan Edition smartphones typically offer the same features as the flagship models, but with some slight downgrades and a slightly lower price. The newest model, the S25 FE, is in many ways similar to last year, but it also brings some improvements that make it a bit more premium. These include a higher-tier Exynos chipset, higher-rated 45-watt charging, a new front-facing camera, and improved build materials. Design-wise, the S25 FE is just like its predecessor, and you'd be hard-pressed to tell it apart from this year's Galaxy S25 Plus as well. The back is again protected by Gorilla Glass Victus here, but the improvement I mentioned is in the frame. It's now made of enhanced armor aluminum, which is meant to be tougher and lighter, but it's not quite the armor aluminum 2 of the S25 Plus. The frame has a silvery finish, and its sharp edge provides a nice grip. And the S25 FE has IP68 rated ingress protection against dust and water, the same as other high-end Samsung phones. Samsung has brought back a 6.7-inch OLED panel for the S25 FE, with a 1080p resolution, a 120Hz refresh rate, and Gorilla Glass Victus Plus protection. One curious change here is in the refresh rate behavior. While Samsung doesn't specify this as an LTPO panel, it's able to dial down its refresh rate all the way from 120Hz down to 1Hz when it's idling. Last year's model could only go from 120Hz to 60. We didn't observe the phone using intermediate refresh rates between the minimum and maximum, except for 30Hz during video playback. The brightness hasn't seen any improvement, but it's still good. We measured a maximum of 435 nits with the manual brightness slider, and this can boost to nearly 1250 nits in auto mode when needed. Besides that, the display performs well, as expected from a high-end Samsung phone. Content looks contrasty and sharp, and there's support for HDR10 Plus video playback here too. For audio, there's a pair of stereo speakers, and they earned a very good loudness score on our charts. The audio quality is very good too. It sounds fuller than last year, with more pronounced bass and cleaner vocals. You can listen for yourself through a comparison tool linked below. The S25 FE has an under-display fingerprint reader, and is optical, not ultrasonic like on the S25 flagships. It works well, but we feel it would be more comfy to use if it was placed a bit higher up. And for storage, the phone can come with 128, 256, or 512 gigs on board, not expandable through microSD. The Galaxy S25 FE comes with Samsung's latest software package out of the box. That's One UI 8 running on top of Android 16. It includes the same features you'd find on the full flagship models, including DeX and Samsung's suite of AI-based features. If you're interested to learn more about the specifics of One UI 8, you can check out our dedicated video. And like other recent high-end Samsung smartphones, the S25 FE will get a whole 7 years of software support. Now we'll get into the chipset. The Galaxy S25 FE gets the full-fledged Exynos 2400 this year, which is a small step up from last year's model, which used an Exynos 2400E. In benchmarks, we do see an improvement over last year's S24 FE, but the difference is small. It's much smaller than the difference between this chip's performance and the flagships running on a Snapdragon 8 Elite. Still, the performance is high-end, and definitely flagship grade. We weren't too impressed with this phone's thermal management though. The S25 FE demonstrated significant throttling during our prolonged stress tests, down to 50% of max CPU performance, similar to last year. Samsung has increased the battery capacity this year from 4700 mAh to 4900. However, the battery life hasn't improved. It's actually quite similar to last year's model. In our battery life test, the S25 FE achieved an active use score of 11 hours and 57 minutes, which isn't bad, but there are competitors that do much better. Another change this year is that the S25 FE is rated for 45-watt charging, up from 25 watts last year. Again, there's no charger included. Despite the supposed increase in charging power though, the S25 FE didn't charge any faster. We charged the phone from 0 to 52% in half an hour, and a full charge took an hour and 10 minutes. Basically the same as last year. There's also again support for wireless charging and reverse wireless charging. Moving on to the cameras. The setup on the backside hasn't changed this year. You get a 50 megapixel main cam, an 8-megapixel 3x zoom, and a 12-megapixel ultrawide cam. However, Samsung has upgraded the selfie cam. You now have a 12-megapixel front-facing camera, the same as on the S25 flagships, but without autofocus. So let's start off with selfies then. This selfie camera produces nicer selfies than the S24 FEs. They're detailed, with a wide dynamic range, and accurate and natural colors. Plus, the subject's face is always well exposed, even in more challenging lighting conditions. Moving on to the rear main camera. It produces decent-looking photos, with quality that's comparable to flagship phones from a few years ago. Detail and sharpness are good, dynamic range is more than decent, and colors are accurate. The contrast could use a boost though, and the quality of indoor shots is not as good as those of current flagships. For example, these shots of people we took indoors came out rather flat, soft, and contrastless. 2x zoom photos taken with the main camera are pretty good. There's a minimal loss in sharpness, and the processing is identical to the 1x mode. There is an automatic night mode, but the phone prefers to take most of the shots without it, unless the scene is very dark. Without the night mode processing, the photos come out soft and noisy. At least there is a way to force the night mode on, and with it the photos look cleaner, with more detail and better dynamic range. But there is also additional sharpening that makes some objects look artificially rendered. Still, we'd recommend shooting with night mode on when possible. The 3x telephoto camera has an 8-megapixel sensor, but the system upscales the shots to 12 megapixels. The results are likable, with contrast and colors that match the main cams well, and decent dynamic range. But again, indoor shots come out noisier and softer. At night, the 3x zoom photos are okay for the most part, if you shoot with the night mode on. The stills have a decent level of detail, sharpness, and noise, but dynamic range leaves more to be desired. Shots from the ultrawide camera are decent. The field of view is quite wide, and the distortion correction does a good job. The level of detail is okay when there's good lighting, but the dynamic range is a bit limited. With the night mode active, the ultrawide camera delivers photos that are just okay, nothing special. Dynamic range is still a challenge, and the white balance isn't always on point. Still, the overall quality is okay. The Galaxy S25 FE can record video in 4K with all of its cameras, and the main cam can do 4K at 120 FPS and 8K at 30 FPS. The daylight footage taken with the main camera is very nice and clean, with a good amount of detail, solid sharpness, and great colors. Dynamic range is okay for the most part. The telephoto cam's videos share most of the traits with the main cams, but these come out a tad softer and fuzzier. The ultrawide camera does a surprisingly good job. The footage is relatively sharp and detailed, with colors matching the main camera's processing very well, and the dynamic range is more than okay for an ultrawide. Electronic stabilization does well to smooth out the footage, and it even does a relatively good job when recording while walking. And at night, the main camera records clean and crisp-looking scenes with good contrast. So there you have it guys, the Galaxy S25 FE. It offers a premium design, a nice display, and versatile triple cameras. Plus you get Samsung's software package and long-term support. We appreciate the effort from Samsung to provide upgrades over last year's model, but honestly none of them will be that noticeable while using the phone, except for the selfie cam, which is clearly better than last year. Even with all of these upgrades, Samsung's own Galaxy S25 Plus offers more features and already costs about the same in many markets. But the S25 FE is a well-rounded high-end smartphone, and if you can get it at a lower price than the full-fledged Plus model, it could be worth considering.
Thanks for watching guys. If you're looking for alternatives, you can check out our reviews of the Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus and Xiaomi's Poco F7 Ultra. Let us know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one.